Today on the Matt Walsh Show, trans activists descended on a city council meeting in Massachusetts. When I show you the footage from this thing, you'll have a hard time believing that it isn't satire, but it's real.
All right, folks, buckle up, because what you're about to witness is straight-up insanity. Trans activists in Massachusetts just turned a city council meeting into a full-blown meltdown, and when I say meltdown, I mean circus-style, over-the-top, apocalyptic-level hysteria. These activists are demanding the city declare itself a sanctuary for transgender people, whatever that even means, while delivering some of the most bizarre, unhinged rants you'll ever hear. And, of course, there are threats, wild accusations, and even a child being used as a political prop. Let's break this disaster down.
You see footage from this week's city council meeting in Worcester, Massachusetts, just a short drive from Salem. I don't want to overstate things here. I'm mostly going to let the footage speak for itself. All I'm saying is that once you see this footage, you have to wonder what exactly they're putting in the water up in that neck of the woods. It's enough to make you rethink a lot of prior assumptions that you may have had. Now, this footage comes from a city council meeting that lasted several hours, and it concerned a proposed resolution to declare that Worcester, Massachusetts is a sanctuary city for transgender and gender-fluid individuals. It's never really explained what exactly that means or why it's necessary. These people are very worried that the Trump administration is going to deport transgender and gender-fluid people, apparently, even though nobody has suggested doing that. In fact, there have been no laws proposed anywhere by anyone that would have any impact on the vast majority of the people that you will see in this council meeting. Yet they held a public hearing to discuss their concerns anyway, and one by one, they demonstrated that we are severely, and I mean really severely, underestimating the number of completely unhinged people who live in the state of Massachusetts. Whatever the estimate was, it's far too low. So here's just a small part of what took place.
I need the city to protect me because the federal government won't. And if you think you're afraid of Trump, you should see how afraid of Trump I am.
Oh no, not Trump. Guys, the boogeyman is back. These activists act like Trump is lurking in the shadows of Worcester, just waiting to personally deport them. The city must protect me because the federal government won't. From what exactly? Are stormtroopers kicking down doors, demanding proof of pronouns? These people live in Massachusetts, one of the bluest. If anything, they're probably treated like royalty there. But nah, it's never enough. They have to invent oppression where none exists. And the theatrics. If you think you're afraid of Trump, imagine how afraid I am. Wow, these people are addicted to victimhood. It's their entire personality at this point.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yes, I can. If you say that you're afraid of Trump and that's why you don't want the city to be a safe space for trans people, you better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
I'm shaking right now. I don't want to be here.
Please?
I'm sorry, am I taking too long pleading for my life?
You remembered how many children I have and that 2 of them are trans.
I speak as both the B and the T in the LGBT.
I'm multiply disabled. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that causes me immense physical pain. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I have narcolepsy, and I couldn't drive myself here, so I had to hide from my driver that I was in drag, which is not an easy thing to do.
Oh, here we go. The oppression continues. Why is it that every time one of these activists speaks, they have to list every single ailment they have? I'm the B and the T. I have this disorder. I have that syndrome. I'm disabled. I have sneeze sprain. I have stubborn hiccup injury. Like, what is happening? Is this a city council meeting or a medical convention? Imagine if normal people did this at work. Hi, boss. I can't come in today. As a cisgender straight male with occasional allergies, I just don't feel safe in this environment. It's ridiculous. These people turn every public forum into a bizarre struggle session where they just dump all their personal issues and expect society to accommodate their every whim.
I do not want to be here. It's my day off. I do not want to be in your DMs.
I have narcolepsy. I have autism. I'm disabled. I stubbed my toe this morning. I have a strange rash on my foot. I have athlete's foot. Just got to list all. This is how it works at a council meeting when there are a bunch of leftists showing up. You just begin. They get 3 minutes to speak, and the first 2.5 minutes are consumed by them listing all of their credentials, and their credentials are just all the things that they're all the different ways that they're victims and all the things they're whining about. And we say this a lot, but it really does feel like a parody when you watch the video. It's like these people can't be real, yet they are. I don't want to be here, complains the trans activist. Well, okay, then leave. Nobody's forcing you to be there. That's how sane people handle situations they don't want to be involved with. But of course, from the perspective of the trans activists, they have no agency whatsoever. Everything that happens to them is the result of some nefarious outside force. They are perpetually oppressed, even when they're making voluntary decisions to appear at council meetings. It is one of the many reasons that these people are deeply and profoundly unhappy. And as you may have just noticed, that rage often leads to violent thoughts. Now, if you're listening to the audio podcast, I'll point out that behind all these speakers, there's a sign that reads, "I see you, silence equals death." And that's obviously an explicit threat that's being made to the members of the Worcester City Council. But just in case they didn't get the message, the first speaker declares that the City Council had better vote the right way, or else, quote, "You better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space." And just to reiterate, this is what the speaker looked like. This is the look. She looks like a Scooby-Doo villain, and not very threatening, but still the sort of person who, if you did see her in public, your first move is to cross the street and keep some distance. I mean, anyone who chooses to dress like a demonically possessed department store mannequin is clearly not the sort of person that you want to consort with. And again, just to be clear, this city council meeting is about a meaningless resolution to declare Worcester a sanctuary city for transgenderism. This is a resolution that does not affect the law in any way. It doesn't give any new protections to anyone. It doesn't change day-to-day life at all for anyone. But trans activists were threatening the city council over it. And as the meeting continued, their behavior became even more irate and even more unhinged. Watch.
Can you look at me and tell me how many of my friends need to die before you do anything?
Please wrap
Look
up.
at me.
Oh man, straight to emotional blackmail. No actual argument, no logic, just straight-up manipulation. How many of my friends need to die before you do something? What does that even mean? This is a meaningless resolution they're debating. It does absolutely nothing. There's no law targeting transgender people. But instead of facts, they go straight to theatrics. You know who else does that? Toddlers? Mom, if you don't buy me that toy, I'll just die. It's the same energy. And then they scream, "Look at me." Yeah, buddy, we see you. That's actually the problem. These activists live for the spotlight, and the second you stop paying attention, they panic. It's like a reality show where they constantly have to up the drama just to stay relevant.
Okay, we're all done here.
Pathetic.
We're all done. Come on.
I speak as someone who is always misgendered, like all the time. People refer to me as sir when I prefer to be referred to as ma'am. I speak as someone who is afraid to use public toilets. I speak as someone who is a member of this community and is a queer person.
The quote there was, "I speak as someone who is afraid to use public toilets." And that may be the first time in American history that that exact line has been uttered at a city council meeting or in any official meeting of any kind. And he delivered that line with no sense of irony or hesitation or shame or anything, like it's part of his identity or some kind of advanced qualification. Somebody else might say, "I speak as a doctor," or "I speak as an experienced plumber," but not this guy. He speaks as someone who is afraid to use public toilets. So quiet down and listen to what he's about to say. Now, frankly, it's a line worth thinking about because it does suggest that, at least in this guy's case, there's a chance his problem can be solved pretty easily. Obviously, everyone's going to keep calling him sir because he's a male. That particular issue is a non-starter. But the toilet problem, I mean, I don't want to think too much about it. It's like, could just be a dietary thing. Many adult males have been afraid to use public toilets at one time or another. Maybe the root of the problem is that the public toilets in Worcester don't flush properly or something. This is an issue that maybe demands more investigation. But at the same time, this footage is also proof that the federal government should stop funding the city of Worcester, Massachusetts immediately. If anybody from Doge is listening, this is a pretty obvious place to make some more cuts. The 2nd Congressional District in Massachusetts, which includes the city of Worcester, received more than $20 million from the federal government in the last fiscal year alone. Several million of your taxpayer dollars went to alleged improvements on something called Mill Street in Worcester, including the establishment of even more bike lanes that interrupt the flow of traffic. None of this funding should continue, obviously. There was no reason for it in the first place. And there's certainly no reason for it now that we know Worcester is essentially an open-air asylum. There was one more moment from this city council meeting that I want to highlight. And this is genuinely one of the most disturbing pieces of footage that you will see. Trans activists handed a script to a 7-year-old child who was wearing a land back shirt with an upside-down American flag on it. And we're going to blur his face, obviously, but here's the moment.
Noticing people here are trying to control the rights of others, and that's not right. We should make Worcester a sanctuary city for trans people. Everybody deserves to feel safe, and everybody needs to feel safe. I've lived here for 4 years, and there hasn't really been any changes in how people feel safe in the city. My birthday is this Saturday, and all I want is peace and for you to vote yes. Please don't let me down for my birthday. There's a lot of queer people that I love, and to Candy Carlson, you should know to never call someone I'm 7, and I know better. The kids are watching, and we're ready to vote you out.
Oh, come on. Now they're using a kid for emotional blackmail? This is peak cringe. Some activists just handed this poor kid a script and said, go guilt trip the city council into submission. And the kicker? The kids are watching, and we're ready to vote you out. They can't vote. Don't you love how these activists don't even bother making their scripts believable? This whole charade is embarrassing.
The applause at the end is almost as disturbing as everything that came before it. This is a child who's clearly being manipulated in about a million different ways, and the trans activists in Worcester loved it. They have no problem poisoning the mind of a young child, exploiting children, as we know. They're happy to convince a child that he needs to be castrated. I mean, this is what they've been doing now for years. So, of course, they're also going to be happy to hand a child a script in order to push some low-effort emotional blackmail. And the script doesn't even make sense, by the way. I mean, he says at the end, the kids are watching and we're going to vote you out. But, of course, children can't vote, even in Massachusetts. So whoever wrote this script, and it was not the child, but whoever wrote it kind of slipped up a bit there. As far as I can tell, the point of this speech was to attack a member of the city council who supposedly referred to a self-described non-binary member of the Worcester City Council as an it instead of a they. And that led to a whole crisis in Massachusetts just a few weeks ago, in which this non-binary, quote-unquote, city councilman decided to go on a paid leave of absence. Watch.
This morning, the first openly non-binary lawmaker in Massachusetts history taking a leave of absence from their post.
We're talking about Worcester City Councilor at large, Thu Nguyen, says it's to focus on their mental health, saying they've faced a discriminatory and toxic culture on the council.
Mr. Chairman, under your leadership, I have felt unsafe around this council body. I have faced transphobia with being misgendered and recently learned that I have been dehumanized to a point where I'm being referred to as it by my colleagues on this council.
Councilor Nguyen made those comments at a city council meeting Tuesday night. Nguyen also said they attend the council meetings via Zoom because they feel unsafe at City Hall.
I really, really wished I felt safe enough to show up on the council floor.
By the way, it is in fact the grammatically correct gender-neutral pronoun. They is not, because they refers to multiple people. It is actually the grammatically correct gender-neutral pronoun. If it sounds dehumanizing, it's because it is. It's unhuman. And that's because in the human species, you're either male or female. There is no such thing as non-binary in the human species. And so if you identify as non-binary, you have dehumanized yourself. You are claiming to be something other than human. Because if you're human, you can only be male or female. But of course, no one would explain that to this person who I think is a male. And but you see, it's just too dangerous in the Worcester City Council. So I'm afraid that in addition to not showing up to work and doing everything remotely, he's saying I'm not going to do anything at all. I'm not going to work, and the taxpayers are going to continue to pay me. An indefinite paid vacation is the only thing that can heal my deep wounds. And you really can't blame this person, honestly. If people in Worcester are so dumb that they fall for this, they deserve to have their money stolen. They deserve for their city to turn into a circus act, which is what's happened, while the representatives skip work because of quote-unquote misgendering. At the very least, it's entertainment for the rest of the country. As soon as we cut their funding, then we could just sit back and truly enjoy it. Or we would be able to enjoy it if not for the fact that there are kids getting mixed up in the middle of all this nonsense. And for Democrats, it will not be so enjoyable. And that's because these activists are self-caricatures who have been steering the ship for the Democrat Party for many, many years. Based on what just happened at the DNC that we talked about a few days ago, we know that they're still steering the ship. And in the end, that is a pathway to complete and total disaster for the simple reason that these people are incapable of leading anything. They can't lead a political movement, much less a country, because they're all pathological narcissists who can't see even 2 inches beyond their own egos. As it stands, Worcester, Massachusetts seems determined to turn itself into a haven for these self-absorbed crackpots, so does the Democrat Party. And the end result will be that the vast majority of Americans, sane people, are going to stay far away from both Worcester, Massachusetts and the Democrat Party. They think they're creating a sanctuary, but they've actually created something else entirely. They've created a monument to the confusion and incoherence of gender ideology. And like Worcester, Massachusetts, that ideology is now collapsing in dramatic and sometimes hilarious fashion right before our eyes.
Well, there you have it. This is what happens when leftist activism spirals into full-blown theater. A meaningless resolution turns into a public meltdown where activists invent oppression, demand special treatment, threaten people, and then use children as political props. And of course, it's Massachusetts, so the city council probably took all of this nonsense seriously. The more we give in, the more unhinged they become. But hey, at least it's entertaining. What do you guys think? Drop a comment below, subscribe if you enjoy content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.